I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your cattle market summary for the week ending February the 27th, where you had yearling feeder cattle selling real consistently $3 to mostly $5 lower, and that's the most consistency we've seen in the feeder cattle market in quite some time. But it was lower from one end of the country to the other and from top to bottom. Now, stocker cattle and calves, not quite that way. They were more uneven, but there just wasn't a very good test of them in the center part of the country and even in the northern plains, where the weather was not too bad and really have had a pretty mild winter so far this year. They didn't have enough numbers to really get a hold on the market. Down in the southeast, the weather really had a clamp on them, the icy roads and what have you, and didn't have enough cattle down there either. The few places that did have enough cattle to really test the market, they sold from firm to as much as $10 higher in some places, and we expect that this time of year for these stocker cattle to really get higher. But your commodity traders have toyed around with that February live cattle contract ever since it come on the board, and this week was no exception. It was the last week for it to be traded there as February came to an end and that contract matured. But the commodity traders just continue to toy with this CME cattle market, just up and down and back and forth, and really these fundamentalist guys and the guys that are active in the cash market are just getting dizzy trying to keep up with this thing. The board was down really hard early in the week, and then, which really wasn't surprising because we had that bearish cattle on feed report, and we know the bears got a hold of this market right now, so really weren't surprised to see it down hard early in the week. But then at the middle of the week it turned sharply higher, and that did surprise everybody. And nobody really expects that to last for a long time and lend long-term support, but it just confuses everybody even that much more. But the rally, the rebound of the futures market there mid to late week was too late to really help the cash feeder market, and even though we did see a little bit of support in some late week sales, for the most part didn't help that much. But your feeder and stocker cash sales have really been slow the last 2 weeks, and mostly due to weather. But we haven't seen hardly any of the wheat cattle move so far this year. And down in the southeast, we've had 2 weeks. There's a lot of big, we don't get the big sale barns down in the southeast, but some pretty sizable markets down in the southeast, counting the bluegrass markets there in Kentucky, that really haven't sold hardly anything. And it'll be 3 weeks of not hardly selling anything by the time they have some decent sales next week. But now they're expecting a lot of rain down in that country, and it may be hard to get cattle out then too. But we're going to have to see a pretty good glut of cash feeder cattle market hit the market here this coming week and the next. These wheat cattle guys got to be off by the middle of March on most of those pastures, so they're going to have to move cattle. Those wheat guys, those yearlings are going to have some size to them, but they're going to have to be disappointed in the weight gain they've had the last 2 or 3 weeks, because the weather has really sapped it out of them. And when those cattle are standing in the quarters humped up, they're not gaining weight. And to boot, those yearlings that are coming off that wheat, a lot of them were purchased right during the record highs of last year, and probably a lot of them won't bring back first cost. And that's really going to be disappointing for those guys. But the big movement of southeastern calves, they'll find plenty of demand, because it's the time of year where we're going to see plenty of demand for stockers and calves, and some of them little sales, instead of having 300 or 400, they might have 500 or 600. It's not going to really flood the market, and those shippers are more than willing to buy those cattle and send them west, and there's going to be plenty of orders for those cattle. So we don't expect the market to get flooded on those lighter weights, especially this time of year. And you see these guys from the southern plains and out in the west, where there's a lot of pasture, summer pasture, in the Flint Hills and the Osage and the foot of the Rockies out there in places in Colorado and New Mexico. They really like to go to those southeastern markets and get those crossbred calves. They've got a lot of frame to them, they got a little age to them, and you can buy those cattle up and turn them out there. We're not too worried about making them all peas in a pod or anything like that, because feedlots will buy those cattle off grass, and they really don't care how they look, knowing that they've been out all summer eating grass. They're going to buy them up. So we've had the best demand on our lighter weights of feeders. The sharpest declines this week were on the weights over 850. It's not really that your lighter weights have a better chance of making money or pencil out any better. It's just that you get to put off your disappointment out further. And you know, guys just like to have cattle. They want to own cattle, especially this time of year. There's nothing a backgrounder would rather do than get some cattle put together and turn them out on grass. That's what they do. That's what they like to do, and they're crazy about it. The closer to production you get, the more your producers love cattle. Starting your cow-calf man, he loves his cows. He names them a lot of times. He knows those cows. He can probably tell you about every calf they've had, even if they're 12 or 15 years old. You get to your backgrounder, there's still a lot of care for those animals, and they're crazy about it. But the further away from you, further up the chain you go, and the less hands-on that you get in the production, then you get to where people don't really care that much about the cattle. They just soon be making widgets or selling insurance or something like that. They don't really have that much love for the industry. And then you get people like these commodity traders in there, and they could really care less. They just soon be trading precious metals as cattle. And the heck of it is they're kind of leading these cattle around by the nose, in the market anyway, and it's kind of a bad deal because they're not tied close enough to the industry. Most of them don't know or care which end gets up first of a cow. And I hate to say that, somebody may not know that. The back end always gets up first. That's the way they protect themselves, is by kicking. Horse always gets up first on the front end. So, but really, it's a shame that they've got so much control over the industry in the Chicago, and really not really knowing how things come together or how it works. But fat cattle run evenly steady this week from 157 to 160. Dress sales at 254. Cows and bulls quite a bit higher this week, 3 to 5 higher, because the light runs in the sale barns have really spurred the competition for those cows and bulls. Here at DVAuction, we're right in the middle of bull season, selling these bulls. We've got several sales every day, especially when you get on the weekend. I was able to help out with a sale up in Osceola, Iowa this weekend here, and DVAuction broadcast the sale and also really put the sale on. We did what we call a TV sale, where we didn't actually have to move the bulls through the ring. We just had pre-recorded video of those bulls, and it sure didn't hurt demand any. Nearly 100 bulls there, average over 6,800 a head. And really a good sale, and buyers and sellers, everybody was really happy with it. But for this report and more information, check out our websites at DVAuction.com and the StockExchangeNews.com. And from a home office here in Maysville, Missouri, we'll talk to you next week.